Hey, friend, and welcome back to another episode of the Camera Brave Show. My name's Marissa, and today we are talking about intentions and staying stuck. As I'm diving into my program with my Camera Brave Academy students, we came to week 2 where we are talking about how inaction is an action. And that is something that really hit home with a few of them. So I wanted to dive into this topic a little bit further here on the show and talk about how this really lies a lot with how we're setting our intentions and how we're either actively or non-intentionally avoiding things that are keeping us stuck and that we would need to be taking action on in order to get to the next step. Before we dive on into today's content, I would like to ask a brief moment of your time. If you're listening to the podcast on Apple Podcast, that's what it's called. Yeah, Apple Podcast. Would you please take a super quick moment of your time and write a brief review of the Camera Brave Show? I would seriously appreciate your time, and it really helps us grow this platform as we're approaching episode 20, which is so exciting to me that we're so far along. This is something that when I started it, I was just passionate about it, and I just wanted to get into it because I personally feel podcasts have been a big part in my personal development and growth. So that's why I started it. And I didn't necessarily have the vision for where I would be at episode 20, but this is episode 18. So we are getting there, and that just lights my soul on fire. I'm so happy about that. And I really hope that you're enjoying these episodes as well. Okay, so let's break down that statement. Inaction is an action. What this can look like is going to be so different for many people, but here's the gist of it. When you are avoiding taking an action, or when you're stalling, or maybe you're stuck, those are intentional actions that you are taking by not getting to that next step and not doing what needs to be done to get there. So these are things that you may not be actively avoiding or hiding from on a daily basis. However, your intentions are not to move forward. So you're not acting on those next steps that will actually get you there. So you're not taking any action on it. And my friend, that is an action. When you are not moving yourself forward, that means that your intentions are not on getting out of this rut, are not on your progress. And that is something to look out for. So an example of this in the world of business would be, say you're trying to launch your course. Maybe you have all of your content ready and it's amazing. And the next step is to film your course. You've got to start taking video. But maybe you've been putting that part off for a while and you're continuing to look at your content and think, well, it's not perfect yet. I'm going to keep looking at my content and I'm going to keep researching and keep adding to it and expanding. And in reality, you are avoiding that next step of taking video. You're setting your intentions and making it sound like you could still be doing things in the name of progress and of moving forward. But in reality, what you have is good enough, and it's time to take that next step and put yourself on camera and push that record button, and you're not. So in this example, the inaction is not moving forward and taking video, but you're supplementing it with a different action of digging into your content, embellishing on that a little bit more. And it's making you almost trick yourself into thinking that you are taking action. But in reality, your intentions to move forward are not there. Your intentions are to continue to broaden, and you're kind of stalling. So my intention of this episode was to spread light onto the fact that not taking an action is an action, and to help you bring awareness to whatever it is that you are not taking action on. Maybe you're supplementing with a different action, like continuing to build out your content for your course when you really know that it's good enough to start running, but your inaction of not taking that video is what is keeping you stuck and stalling. And what's really dangerous, especially in something that requires momentum, like creating a course or building a membership, what's dangerous is staying in that creating phase for too long, because so much of what you are doing needs momentum, it needs passion, and it needs spark. And when you're stalling on your content, you're going to continually second guess it. You're going to think, I could actually do this a lot better. I could redo this and make it perfect. And when you're stuck in that planning phase for too long, you are completely derailing the progress that you've made. So if you're in a position where you're sitting on some content, whether it's an idea for a podcast, a YouTube series, whatever it is, if you are sitting on content that you have worked hard to create, that at one point you thought this is gold, now I've just got to take the next step. If you're sitting on content like that, I don't care how long you've been sitting on it for, I want you to honor what you have created and take the next step with it. Maybe it's not a video. Maybe it's creating your program. Maybe it's launching a podcast. Whatever that next step is, honor what you've created. Refuel that passion and that momentum and take that next step, even if it's scary. Because the truth is that when you started this process, you didn't plan on stalling out halfway through. When you started this process, you planned on seeing it through to the very end. And that is what I want to encourage you to do now. I want to encourage you to take that content and dust it off, whatever it is that you know that you are passionate about, that is good. I want you to take that next step and what you can do to share it with the world, whether it's a blog post, a YouTube video, launching your podcast. You owe it to yourself to take that next step, because whatever caused you to not take action and to take that next step, that, whether you realize it or not, was an action to not take that next step. And when you can reset your intentions, you can take that next step, you can take action, and you can actually create something out of an idea, because ideas aren't going to get you to that next step. You need an actual thing. And if you have maybe done the pre-work for your thing, let this be the push you need to turn that into a thing. Don't sit on your brilliant ideas. Create something and share them with the world. So how do we do that? How do we get ourselves from this idea to this action phase? Here are my best recommendations. The biggest thing that I have noticed to get me to do something that may be scary, or that I may have been stalling on and sitting in this state of inaction for a while, is to rediscover my passion in my message. What is it that drove you to create something in the first place? If you're in business for yourself, whether you consider it a side hustle or something that you're freelancing in, whatever term you use, if you've created some form of business for yourself, it's because you have a passion and a drive. That's why I love working with entrepreneurs, because they have a passion. They see the world and they have their own approach to it that they have to work on. They have to bring it to life and they have to spread it out into the world. So get back in touch with that passion. Get back in touch with this conviction that you have in your message. Those are two of my favorite words when talking about reigniting that spark and that fire: your passion and conviction. If that's a word that maybe you've been out of touch with for a while, I want you to get reacquainted with it. Have conviction in your messaging. That is a strong word. That is when you feel it in your bones. It's this unshakable knowing that what you have to bring into the world is so worth saying. And it's this excitement that you can build around it, knowing that you have this message and that you are so excited to get it out there, because it has the power to impact your life, your family, and your business. And it has the power to impact your audience and their lives and their businesses. So if you are stuck, rediscover that conviction that either caused you to start your business or caused you to start creating whatever project you're currently stuck on. Get comfortable with that word and feel that conviction in your bones. Let that passion start to rise in you and really get excited about what you are talking about. For me, it's storytelling and video. I love creating video. I love coming up with ideas for how people can create video. All things video, it's what gets me excited. My conviction is that everyone has a story, and that those stories have the power to impact lives. That is what I go back to whenever I feel hesitant, whenever I feel like maybe I'm not the one who should be telling this message, maybe I'm not equipped enough. I go back to that passion and that conviction every time. And that is what you can use to get out of this rut that you may be in and to make that next step forward. The other thing that you're able to do is to talk about something that you could talk all day about. So maybe if you're on the newer side of content and you haven't really started, that's amazing, because that means that you have your entire library of knowledge and topics that you can start to explore. Talk with the ones that you can talk all day about. When I started Camera Brave, I started with talking about video techniques, because those were things that I knew. I knew that I knew them. I knew that I was knowledgeable. I knew that I was good at talking about them. And I knew that it was something that people needed to know, something I could talk all day about, telling you how to have amazing lighting, showing you how to use the sun and natural light, showing you how to frame yourself so you have just enough headroom, but not too much, showing you how to put your camera at eye level, no matter what you have around. Those are what I first started talking about when I started Camera Brave, because I could talk all day about them. Now, I knew that there were more abstract sort of ideas that went into the foundation of Camera Brave that I maybe hadn't explored yet, like mindset. I knew that mindset was a component. I knew that people were allowing fear and hesitations and feeling ill-equipped to not allow them to show up on camera. But when I first started, those weren't topics that I'd really explored yet. So that's not what I started talking about. I started talking about video techniques, started talking about body language, eye contact, connecting with people. And then as I continued to create content and I continued to have conversations, I started to work through those more abstract concepts of things like mindset. And that turned into this entire podcast. I couldn't start a podcast telling you about just video techniques of body language and of framing and lighting. So I knew that once I really felt comfortable knowing that there was such a major mindset component that went behind people presenting themselves on camera and building confidence, then I had an entire new platform to dive into. So all of that to say, when you're trying to get unstuck, when you're trying to reignite this passion, and when you're trying to get that ball rolling again, talk about things that you could talk about all day. What it is that you know, and that maybe you've even had questions about, that is a great place to start. Something that a client or a customer has asked you about specifically, a concern that they've brought up, because if one customer or client has thought that, you have no idea how many other people in your audience are struggling with that exact thing. For example, one of the women inside my Camera Brave Academy is a web designer. And she said that one of the first videos she wanted to create would be a guide over all of the different website building platforms and how entrepreneurs can pick theirs. Wow, I was so excited about this content idea for her, because I am an entrepreneur that did that whole Google mess way back in the beginning of Wix versus Shopify versus WordPress versus the list goes on and on. And it was way over my head. It was before I realized the beauty and wisdom in hiring someone that is an expert in that field. It was when I was first starting out and I thought, no, I can figure this out. I took a WordPress class in college. I should be fine. No way. I now have the wisdom to know that web design is something I don't want to touch. Web design is something I want to pay someone to take care of completely for me. And I told her that if one person brought that concern to her, there are so many other people that are either about to start their website, or maybe they're about to have their website re-renew and they're wondering if they should change it or stick with the one that's been driving them crazy. So that was my encouragement to her, to take that topic and run. So if there's something that someone has asked you in your audience, there may be so many other people wondering that. And those are great jumping off points and great places that you can take inspiration and build content from. My friend, if you are feeling stuck and if you are in a state of inaction, please recognize that for yourself, not by being tough on yourself, not by beating yourself up, but by recognizing that the passion that you started with and that conviction in your message is worth pushing yourself to take that next step. Thank you so much for listening with me today. As always, you can find me over at Camera Brave on Instagram and Facebook. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll see you next time on the Camera Brave Show.